We are less than 2 weeks away from the start of Pittsburgh Steelers training camp, but before we can get into the start of the 2025 season, there are more lists. My name is Mark Bergin on behalf of the Arthur Moats Experience, and today I'm going to go through the top 10 Pittsburgh Steelers on their team's current roster. This is not contract value. This is just best of the best in terms of talent that the Pittsburgh Steelers have on the current roster. Few honorable mentions before we get into the top 10. I want to give a shout out to Zach Frazier, Deshaun Elliott, Pat Freiermuth, Jaylen Warren. There are others. They don't fall in my top 10. Let's get started. We're going to go 10 through 1. At number 10, I've got the kicker, Chris Boswell, coming off an all-pro season. His best season as a pro, perhaps his best season we've seen to date. Inside of 50 and really inside of 55 yards, Boswell, the Wizard of Boz, is nearly automatic. He didn't miss an extra point a season ago. He only missed one field goal, 49 yards in. He was 13 of 15 on field goals from 50 yards or greater. The Wizard of Boz. If the Steelers get it across the 50-yard line and the drive stalls, you know you're going to get at least 3 with Chris Boswell. Again, one other thing too, he led the NFL in scoring a season ago, and that's why he's number 10 on my list. A very valuable member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. At number 9, Aaron Rodgers, at the age of 41. How much is left in the tank? His second season coming off that Achilles tear. It's probably going to be the final year of his career. He turns 42 during the 2025 season. Last season, the Jets went 5-12 with Rodgers. He had nearly 3,900 yards through the air, 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. It was his worst statistical season since at least 2017. It's really incumbent upon the young Steelers offensive line to help keep Rodgers stay upright because he's at an advanced age. He doesn't have the same mobility as a pocket passer that he did earlier in his career when he could move around quite a bit. So Aaron Rodgers, I think he raises the Steelers' expectations this year a little bit more than you would have had with Mason Rudolph. And there's a reason why some people think that the Steelers could go on a playoff run and perhaps a Super Bowl run. I think Aaron Rodgers helps contribute towards that. I think the Steelers will make the playoffs, but I think it's going to be same old, same old. But Aaron Rodgers, even at the age of 41, is my 9th best Pittsburgh Steeler. At number 8, I've got Joey Porter Jr. coming off a rough season where he led the NFL. He was the most penalized cornerback in the NFL, drawing 17 penalties in 2024. 6 of those came in the Week 13 game against the Cincinnati Bengals. T. Higgins gave him fits. The Bengals accepted 4 of those penalties. Now, the Steelers won that game. It was a 44-38 shootout. And I know Mike Tomlin was quoted after the game saying, making the analogy of like, hey, opposing teams foul Shaquille O'Neal and force him to make his free throws. But this is where I think 2 other cornerbacks that I have in my top 10 Steelers in Darius Slay and Jaylen Ramsey are going to help with the development of Joey Porter Jr. He learned from Patrick Peterson. I think he's going to learn from these other 2 veterans coming in. Slay was quoted on his Big Slay podcast saying, quote, "I'm going to make sure to get him right," end quote, when Slay was talking about Joey Porter Jr. So entering year 3, I still have high expectations for Joey Porter Jr. He has stayed healthy, relatively healthy. He played in 16 games a year ago. He's had an interception in each of the last 2 seasons, 7 pass deflections a year ago. I think he's gotten better as a tackler. He had 70 tackles in 2024. He had 43 as a rookie. I've got Joey Porter Jr., number 8, as my 8th best Steeler. At number 7, Alex Highsmith, the beneficiary of playing opposite TJ Watt. At 27 years old, the Steelers have 3 years left. They have 3 years more of Alex Highsmith under contract. We should see his best football at this standpoint. I want to see Highsmith revert back to that 2022 season when he led the NFL with 5 forced fumbles. He had 14 and a half sacks that season. Highsmith coming off a year where he battled injuries, only played in 11 games in 2024, but they're paying him an average annual salary of $17 million, which might seem like a lot, but actually might be pretty good value, again, considering you have him under contract for 2025, 2026, and 2027. And I also think that some of the sack numbers are a little bit down, considering that the Steelers play Nick Herbig on passing downs a lot of times too, given his speed off the edge. Highsmith has more weight, is certainly a lot better at stopping the running game. But Alex Highsmith, I've got at number 7 Hopefully we can see him continue to get better and better, and hopefully we see a better season from him coming off an injury-riddled season in 2024. At number 6, we'll keep it on the defensive side of the ball. Patrick Queen, he's still only 25. And I think that the familiarity with Terrell Austin's system will help him this coming season. Last year was the first year we saw Queen in a Steelers uniform coming over from Baltimore. The Steelers made Queen their highest paid free agent ever in franchise history. It was a 3-year deal, $41 million. But this is a position that the Steelers have been trying to get right since Ryan Shazier's devastating injury. We've gone through Joe Schobert, Devin Bush, and Vince Williams, Quan Alexander, Peyton Wilson, Cole Holcomb. I could go on and on and on and on and on. But I think what we need to see from Queen is, okay, yes, he was the beneficiary of playing opposite Roquan Smith, but the Ravens didn't give Queen that fifth-year contract, that fifth-year option on his rookie deal, and instead they gave Roquan Smith a huge extension in the aftermath of the trade with the Chicago Bears. But he's a solid tackler, Patrick Queen is. 129 tackles a year ago. I want to see more of those splash plays. So he had 6 TFLs, 7 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. I want to see more forced fumbles. I want to see some interceptions. I want to see those dynamic plays from Patrick Queen. And I think that familiarity with Terrell Austin's defensive system will help in that. I still think there's a lot of upside. Again, Queen is only 25 years old. At number 5, I've got Darius Slay. He's 34, coming off a Super Bowl championship with the Philadelphia Eagles. And his role in helping develop 2 young cornerbacks over in Philly, and Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. And the Eagles say, hey, we're going to release Slay after this season. He had 1 more year on that contract, but the Steelers signed Slay to a 1-year, $10 million deal. Not only is he a Super Bowl champion, he's a 6-time Pro Bowler. So we'll get into the versatility of what I think the Steelers can do at the defensive backfield when we get to Jaylen Ramsey later on this list. But even at 34, might be his final year. I like Darius Slay's addition to this team, given his veteran leadership and a winning pedigree. At number 4, I've got DK Metcalf, the wide receiver coming over from Seattle. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler, and the Steelers gave him a huge contract, 4 years, $132 million, $33 million average annual salary, $60 million guaranteed. They're paying him wide receiver 1 money. And you might say, Mark, he didn't even have 1,000 yards last season. How's that possible? Remember, DK Metcalf was playing alongside Jackson Smith-Njigba and Tyler Lockett in Seattle. So given that he's Pittsburgh's primary number 1 option, I think that his rapport with Aaron Rodgers is going to be vital. But what happens when teams bracket him? Can he still be somewhat productive even when he's double-teamed? And then the other players on the Steelers roster, who's going to emerge as offensive playmakers on this side of the ball? Who can Aaron Rodgers go to consistently if other teams take away DK Metcalf? But 27 years old, his best football should be ahead of him. Puts up 1,000 yards nearly every single year. And I'd imagine that production to be high with Aaron Rodgers. I'm really excited to see what he and Aaron Rodgers can do with this offense in the 2025 season. At number 3, Cam Hayward, even at the age of 36, coming off an all-pro season, first-team all-pro. I'm going to use this analogy a lot. It's like spoiled milk, where you go to the fridge and it's like, is it still good? And you sniff it and it's like, yeah, this is good for another day. What the Steelers have done that's been very strategic with Cam Hayward is, even a year ago when he was first-team all-pro, Cam Hayward played 71% of the team's defensive snaps. That was the lowest total, not counting the injury-riddled 2023 season, since Cam Hayward was a rookie. Again, 71% of the defensive snaps, the lowest total since Cam Hayward was a rookie, not counting that 2023 season when Cam Hayward had, I think it was the groin and the hernia injuries. So they've been very strategic. 8 sacks you get really excited about a year ago. On the interior, you look at the 20 quarterback hits, you look at the 12 tackles for loss. But what I see with Cam Hayward is his ability with pass deflections. 11 pass deflections a year ago, to where even when he's not getting home to the quarterback, he's knocking passes down at the line of scrimmage and being a disruptive menace for opposing offenses. Use that country club style in training camp and early on in the season, because I want to see Cam Hayward play his best ball on the back half of the season. And I'm really excited to see what Cam Hayward does in terms of the mentorship with a guy like Derek Harmon coming in as your first round rookie out of Oregon. That excites me a lot with Cam Hayward. Still, even at age 36, he's playing at a high level. By and large, and I'm not talking about Cam Hayward or Calais Campbell here. I'm not talking about these players. They're exceptions, not the rule. Defensive tackles usually don't age this gracefully. Cam Hayward's aging like fine wine. How much can the Steelers continue to rely on that? But that's why you bring in and draft Derek Harmon. That's why they doubled up in the draft as well with Y.A. Black out of Iowa as well. The mentorship Cam Hayward can provide those players, like what you see at the defensive back position as well, is something I get excited about when you talk about all the dogs that the Steelers have on the defensive side of the ball. At number 2, I've got Jaylen Ramsey. Even at the age of 30, I still think he has gas left in the tank. It's the positional versatility that Ramsey brings. You could play him on the outside. You can play him in the slot. You could play him at safety. Some people might have some concerns that the Steelers have 3 corners for 2 positions. But what I say to you is, if you look at what True Media is saying, the Steelers only played in their base defense, the 3-4, on 25% of the snaps in the 2024 season, meaning you're playing a nickel with 5 DBs on the field a lot of the times. You're playing a dime a lot of the times with 6 defensive backs on the field. When that happens, what the Steelers do, here's what I think can happen. Okay, if you play your base 3-4 defense, maybe you move Ramsey to safety opposite Deshaun Elliott, and you've got Slay and Porter on the outside. Maybe it's Juan Thornhill, and maybe you keep Slay on the sidelines for a few plays, and you've got Ramsey and Joey Porter Jr. Remember, Slay's 34 years old, so you want to make sure that you limit his snaps a little bit too. You want to make sure that that can happen. If you go to a nickel, maybe Ramsey goes to the slot at the nickel. You've got Slay and Porter on the outside, Juan Thornhill, Deshaun Elliott. The Steelers have a lot of versatility to make sure that their best 4 defensive backs are on the field regardless of what type of defense that they're in. I'm really excited. This is something early on in the season I'm fascinated to watch. But what I'm really excited about is see number 5 fly around the field and make plays. Coming off the year, we played in all 17 games for the Dolphins. He had 2 interceptions. He shuts down opposing teams' best receivers. There's a reason he's one of the best DBs in the game. And one other thing I'm going to say about Jaylen Ramsey, he's won everywhere he's played. Jacksonville, they won at a high rate. The Rams, he won a Super Bowl. Miami, maybe not to the level that you'd want, but they're still by and large successful with Mike McDaniel and company. They have been. So that really, really excites me with what Darius Slay brings. But Jaylen Ramsey is my second best Pittsburgh Steeler, even at the age of 30. He hasn't been a first-team All-Pro since the 2021 season, but he's a 7-time Pro Bowler. Want to see him play at an elite level again, and certainly the Steelers are paying him to do that. I can't wait to see how the Steelers use and deploy him, move him around the field. At number 1, to no surprise, TJ Watt, the face of the Pittsburgh Steelers, 30 years old. At the time of this recording, he is entering the final year of his contract. Now, I think that the Steelers get a deal done before the start of the 2025 season on a contract extension. What that looks like is this. Myles Garrett is getting an average annual salary of $40 million per year. Max Crosby's is north of $30 million per year. I think it has to be a minimum of what Myles Garrett is making. And if by somehow the Steelers and Watt don't reach an agreement on a contract extension, I think you're going to see TJ Watt play at a level where he could be Defensive Player of the Year again. And he might do that even if he gets a contract extension. While Watt played in all 17 games a year ago, he had 11.5 sacks. He battled injuries throughout the course of the year. He was still second-team All-Pro because he had 6 forced fumbles. That led the NFL. He had 2 fumbles recovered as well. TJ Watt is a magnet to the football, and there's a reason he's one of the best edge rushers in the game. I would like to see him be a one-hat player, and what I mean by that is I'd like to see the Steelers give him a lucrative contract extension and see him in a Steelers uniform for the duration of his career. I think he's proven that, and I would not want to mess around with that going into this season to make sure that the Steelers are taking care of him because he's dynamic off the edge. Now, Two things I want to see from TJ Watt this coming season. Number one, I want to see the Steelers move him around like what the Cowboys do with Micah Parsons and what with the Browns do with Myles Garrett, targeting the weakest offensive lineman. It's like a pick and roll in basketball where teams hunt the worst defender. I want to see the Steelers do that this coming season with Watt. Another thing I want to see them do is like what they did with Cam Hayward and limiting snaps early on in the year. I don't need TJ Watt as much as I need towards the end of the year. Nick Herbig, you're going to get more snaps to keep TJ Watt fresh at the end of the year when we need him making plays versus when he's worn down at the end of the year and can't do a whole lot for you because he's done so much to that point. When TJ Watt steps on the field and steps between the lines, he's going 110% every single time. So make sure you're saving that to when you need it in the season, late in the season. That's what I want to see the Steelers do with TJ Watt. Move him around and make sure he's fresh December and January when hopefully you're going on a playoff run. Let me know what you think of my top 10 Steelers. I'll give you a quick recap here again. I've got Chris Boswell at number 10, Aaron Rodgers at number 9, at number 8, Joey Porter Jr., Alex Highsmith at 7. Then I've got Patrick Queen at number 5, Darius Slay, DK Metcalf at 4. Cam Hayward is the third best Steeler. At number 2, I've got Jaylen Ramsey at number 1, TJ Watt. Let me know what you think of my rankings. Am I missing certain players? Should certain players be flip-flopped? Hopefully this was entertaining for you and you enjoyed listening and watching. If I got something wrong, leave it in the Inzer chat. Let's have a conversation about it. But hope you enjoyed this. As we get closer and closer to training camp, keep it here on the Arthur Moats Experience because we are going to have a ton of content as we get closer and closer to the start of the 2025 season. Hope all of you have a great rest of your day. Signing off on behalf of the Arthur Moats Experience, my name is Mark Bergin. Thank you so much for watching.